And welcome back to Boom and Bust. I'm your host, Tony Clement, here with Pierre Poilievre. He is, of course, a candidate for the Conservative Party of Canada leadership and eventually Prime Minister. Pierre, you were mentioning in the first segment about inflation, which, of course, has been a scourge throughout the G20 nations. But what makes it so bad in Canada? Why are we suffering as much as we are here?
Well, first of all, we should never give ourselves the excuse that this is a problem everywhere and therefore we have no control over it. Switzerland has very low inflation, under 3% right now. Why? Because they protected the purchasing power of the Swiss franc. They haven't been printing cash to fund deficits. Instead, their monetary policy does what it's supposed to, which is to retain the value of the currency, and that's why the Swiss can buy more with their money than we can. It is true that Canada is not the only country that has caused inflation for its population. There's no question the Federal Reserve in the US, the European Central Bank, they've all printed cash to fund uncontrollable spending, and that has caused inflation for their people. But as our mothers taught us, Tony, just because your friends are jumping off a bridge doesn't mean you have to. So it's not good enough to say, well, everybody's got inflation, so why don't we just go along for the ride? Everyone's got lung cancer because they're all smoking cigarettes. That's not a good reason to smoke cigarettes.
Right.
To the contrary, it's a good reason to say, let's learn from their mistakes and do exactly the opposite. And let's retain the purchasing power of our cash. And that's what I want to get back to, an independent central bank with low inflation. And I would just want to catch at one point on housing. Young people feel like they've lost control of their lives because they can't afford a home. A home is not like a normal consumer good. If bread prices go up, well, young people can eat more oatmeal. If the cost of an iPhone goes up, they might go and buy another smartphone. There's ways to shop around for an alternative. If you can't afford a home, you can't plan your life. You cannot get home equity for your eventual retirement, build collateral or credit history for an eventual small business loan, or get married and have kids. So the most basic human decisions and actions are robbed when you can't afford a home. And this is why it is not your normal political irritant. This is a massive psychological crisis for our young people. You want to know, I think one of the reasons we have so much trouble with mental health among youth is because they can't figure out what's going to happen to their lives when they can't leave their parents' basements.
Right.
You're not the master of your own destiny if you can't get into your own home. And it's not good enough to live in a 400 square foot rented apartment paying someone else's mortgage. You need to own a home. So the solution is get the gatekeepers out of the way, sell off unused federal buildings, stop printing money, start building houses.
I'm glad you added that. I was struck by the way you characterized the Bank of Canada. You said give it more independence because, of course, your opponents are attacking you saying you want to remove independence of the Bank of Canada. But what you're saying is they've been beholden to the Trudeau government. Maybe expand on that a little bit.
Well, they've both been beholden to one another. Look, if you listen to Tiff Macklem, the current governor, he's made numerous inappropriate comments about government finance policy. He has endorsed liberal deficits in his public pronouncements. He's endorsed liberal public policy decisions. That is not his job. It shows political bias on his part. Furthermore, if you look at the schedule for money printing that he published last year, it was funny. On a Monday, Chrystia Freeland came out and said she wanted to borrow $150 billion. And on the Wednesday of the same week, the governor of the Bank of Canada announced he was going to print $150 billion. So that's not independence, that's dependence, right? The federal government was dependent on the central bank to print the money to fund its deficits. That is not the role of the central bank. It's not anywhere in the mandate of the bank to fund government deficits. The bank's job is to keep inflation low, and they weren't doing it. In fact, their entire policy suite was designed to please the prime minister's decisions, and that is not the job of an independent central bank. The bank should have been exclusively focused on low inflation. They were not. They clearly were not. They were printing money and expanding easy cash even after inflation was well above the 2% target. So they're the ones that made that decision. I'm going to give back real independence with a new governor who will get inflation down.
We're having our conversation with Pierre Poilievre. He is a candidate for the Conservative Party of Canada leadership and eventually Prime Minister. We're going to continue that discussion right after these messages. Please stay with us.